Hello, this is Dave Lundahl from Insights Now. Hey, and welcome everybody to this webinar on sea salt, sodium chloride, insights into ingredient scoring for a perceived cleaner label. So I'm really excited about this as a way of introduction. I'll get into that in a second, but this is the eighth webinar that we've done in the last 12 months. And all of these webinars have been recorded, as this one is being recorded. So if you are interested in seeing any of these past webinars, all you need to do is get into the Insights Now website, and you'll be able to get access and view these if any of the other topics really make sense to you. So anyways, without much further ado, this particular topic is one I'm going to be co-presenting today with Sarah Kirkmeyer, and Sarah is, let's see if I can get to her here, and Sarah is Senior Director. She'll do an introduction herself in a second here, but for those that do not know myself, Dave Lundahl, I'm the CEO for Insights Now, and I've been working in the field of innovation, product development for, gosh, I hate to say it, but 25 years now. I published a book on innovation in 2011, Breakthrough Food Product Innovation Through Emotions Research. And this is an area of great importance, I think, for the industry. So we're really happy to present some information on it. So Sarah?
Hi, this is Sarah Kirkmeyer. Excited to be a member of the Insights Now team and bring that expertise from the ingredient side to really help us understand and leverage some of the knowledge that we might gain and propel us forward in the ways of which we can think and innovate about ingredients and how we can apply it to consumers and the way we develop products. And so all those types of things have come together through my experience both in food and non-food and bring it to Insights Now. Here. So excited to co-present with Dave. I'm going to come back in at a couple points, but you'll hear my voice later on.
All right, super. For those of you who might be new to Insights Now, we're a behavioral market research company, and we work in really three areas: innovation and product development. We work in marketing and messaging. We work in brand positioning and planning. All these three areas, the topic of a clean label really impacts all three of these areas, certainly in the product development design area, but it impacts brands and positioning of brands, and it impacts the messaging, and so how you position a particular product, what are the claims you make, and so on. So it's really an important aspect. And it fits really well into what Insights Now does. If you have not attended any of the past webinars, the way we try to have this is a very participatory sort of experience. And we would love to get your questions. We have a section at the very end for question and answer. There's a chat window here on the side. So if you have a specific question on the side, you can log it in there. You can send it privately to us, and we'll address it after the fact with you. Or you just can send it to all. We'll see that you have that a question has been posted, and so we'll use that as a way. And if so, any time during the course of this presentation, please enter in the question then, or you can wait till the end. But we'll probably have 10 or 15 minutes at the end to do Q&A. All right, so the free from food movement. It's not just food, it's the free from movement, which includes food and non-food. We'll talk a little bit about non-food at the very end today. It is something that is radically changing and impacting consumer packaged goods today. Some statistics, you can see that the free from industry, for the food industry impact is, it's going to be projected to be over $40 billion in U.S. Food sales by 2021. It's rapidly growing. It's rapidly growing with products that have claims of no additives or artificial ingredients, claims of all natural, claims of nothing artificial, and other claims such as non-GMO. So it's really an area that is impacting all aspects, of the supply chain, from the food manufacturers, retailers, all the way down to the ingredient suppliers that are trying to all really address these concerns that consumers have, as this free from sort of movement continues to take shape. And as a consequence, if you think of it just from the retailer's perspective, uh, there are a number of retailers, and we're showing some of the brands today. These retailers have actually blacklisted ingredients from their stores. So no product in these stores may have specifically any sort of ingredients. And the six major supermarket chains currently, and the criteria they use for uh, listing these blacklisting various ingredients come from a number of different sources. Okay, so anyways, Sarah, you're going to
Yeah.
add something to this, right?
Yeah, the impact of this is both from the consumer and from the supplier side. I think that really listening and trying to understand and anticipate what the consumers are looking for is something that the activists and popular press are really trying to key into. And then the influence of that is synthesizing that with consultants and some scientific evidence to develop these different types of lists. It's pretty amazing. You can go online and you can look at these lists. Some of them are very specific, some of them are a little bit more broad, but they're all really long lists of ingredients. And the idea that we have is, these lists of ingredients, some of them sound chemical, some of them sound, pretty standard. But we just don't know what consumers think about that. The industry has created a lot of noise around this, and the impact is pretty pervasive. Ingredient companies have to totally change how they develop different types of products for these companies, for Whole Foods, for Panera, for Kroger, to fit into these specific guidelines. And that, when they're developing these specific ingredients, alternatively, there's a sacrifice with regard to, consumer preference there, and we really have to think about trade-offs that are made here. So what we're doing is really taking a pause to say, there's these lists out there, they've been put together with the knowledge that's current, but we really believe that the voice of the consumer is missing in really understanding this together.
Yeah, I mean, it's really put the voice of the consumer. There's a number of reports that various sources have published about this free from food movement. And of course, that's often based on some consumer input. But what is really missing is a voice in the consumer into the product development process for individual sort of decisions that companies or those in throughout the supply chain of the food industry and other sort of CPG industry supply chains. And so what we've done is, in order to address this, we have created a community of what we call clean label enthusiasts. And this community has upward towards about 1,000 active members now in the U.S. They are forward-thinking primary shoppers for their households, and in comparison to regular primary shoppers, they more frequently will read the ingredient labels on products, especially when they're a new product they don't know really well. And as a result of that, they actually take action. They will avoid buying brands that they believe have quote unquote bad ingredients or quote unquote too many chemicals, as they claim, they state in the research we've done with them. And this is, they have very specific information or beliefs about brands and beliefs about specific ingredients that are very strong. and are part of this sort of movement of free from sort of thinking. So the data that we're going to show today is based on a Gen Pop sample of over 7,500 primary shoppers that we surveyed between October 2017 and March 2018. And so some more information about these people. They are extremely careful about the foods that they eat in terms of what they state in comparison to regular consumers. And what's really interesting, they will trade away amazing taste for ingredients that they trust. So it's a really, they will occasionally make trade-offs in certain sort of contexts for certain types of products, like perhaps convenience or things. They will, or certain types of categories, you see some trade-offs, and we'll talk about that a little bit today. But generally, they will never or only occasionally buy products with artificial ingredients in them. So really interesting. In comparison, demographically, they look like demographically regular consumers. They tend to be skewed a little higher in education. Distribution throughout the U.S. is not uniform. Some of the markets in the U.S. is upward to about 24% of the primary shoppers in those markets. And in the average across the U.S., it seems to be about 16%. And as we continue to research, we'll track to see how that might be growing over time, so we can see if this is continuing to expand, which we expect it will be. So clean label enthusiasts also have different shopping behaviors. They will shop at more value add stores, and this includes a lot of the stores that have these blacklisted ingredients in comparison to regular consumers that you'll see from this graph here tend to be more value oriented versus price. So so it's very interesting, and we've done research and show that these consumers also will shop. The clean label enthusiasts shop at more stores, make more stops, and decide I'm going to shop for these sort of categories at this store, or these ones at other stores, and so on. So they can really provide the address the needs of their families and their households. The influences they state that are really important, of course, artificial ingredients, sugar, preservatives are really important influences in their buying behavior versus regular shoppers. So in order to really bring the voice of the consumer, what we're going to be talking about today, and we'll show some examples, for faster, more informed decision making, what we've done is created various types of access points. And these you can have access to your own custom segments. We can segment, we can type this community very quickly and easily. We can give you then access to, we're doing quarterly reports. We just last week issued our next quarterly report that talks about a lot of the content information that I will share today. We have access to various, also a workspace, an app that you can actually do your own deep dives. You could do your own queries to understand for these moments or these types of foods or these segments of consumers, how do you compare and contrast various ingredients in terms of how they are perceived by consumers as contributing to a clean label. And last, you can get access to this community for your own custom research at very low preferred rates for qualitative or quantitative types of research. So it fits into a more agile process for research and innovation. So we're going to address today and present some information really that comes from this workspace. And so you can see what this is about and give you a sort of a sense for the types of things you can do and some of the insights that we're finding. Okay, so the idea is all fitting into more agile process for faster, more informed product development decisions. All right, so first I'm going to talk about the scoring system that we've created, a way in which we can actually rate how an ingredient contributes to a perceived clean label on as it might be looked on the back panel. And then Sarah is going to actually step through some insights from some of the data that we've been collecting recently. All right, so what we have done is we invite, this is sort of our research process of what we've done. We invite these members of the community to participate in an ingredient survey. And we screen them for being category users of various foods or beverages or non-foods. And then for each category that they have, we give them a listing of various what products. We put them in the context of a moment. We say, okay, select one of these products in the category that is typical for you in this moment. A moment might be an occasion when you're at leisure or seeking convenience or some benefit. And then they actually then go through a process of we show them in the context that they select in this moment and for the type of food that is typical for them. We show them a series of ingredients and ask people to avoid or okay. And we collect that data and we then generate what we call a clean label score from that. And so this is on the right, you can see is just a screenshot of what we call an implicit test. So we're not only collecting the information on whether this particular ingredient that we show very rapid, a whole series of these, consumers will do up to maybe 60 of these at a time. You okay or avoid, and then from that we actually also time how fast it takes for them to select okay or avoid. And the speed, the timing of this is actually a very interesting dimension that generates and makes this into a much more implicit test. Because if it's a very fast response, then it is something that is they don't have to really think about. They just know the ingredient. In this context, they would okay or avoid. If they have to think about it, there's a lot of cognition going on. There's a lot of thinking about it and trying to understand what maybe they don't understand what this ingredient is. That could be important information or not. So in order to determine what is a fast or slow, we do a little pretest. And we actually have them go through a color test and a numbers test. It's an example of what the numbers test is. And we have the participants pick 3 numbers, and then they show a series of screens where they say, is this one of the numbers you selected? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And there should be a very fast response. So then we look at the 90th percentile of the, we do a colors test like this and a numbers test, and the number is a non-parametric technique to determine what would be for that individual a fast cutoff time. Tends to be generally 2 to 3 seconds as a cutoff time for an individual. And from that, we're able to bucket things. We have to bucket responses for any ingredient in the context of a moment for a type of food product in a food category. Is it fast okay? Is it slow okay? Is it slow avoid? Or is it a fast avoid? And from that, we're able then, we have a weighting system to build this into a specific score. And this score goes from 0, which is a worst case, very low score in terms of contributing to a clean label, and 100 is the best score you can get as contributing that ingredient in the context of that moment for that type of food, contributing to so it's a clean label score. Uniform case at a 50 means about half the people are avoiding or clicking OK. And you can punch in these numbers here. You can see, 60% at fast OK, 18 slow OK, and so on and so forth, gets you a score of 75. All right, so that's sort of our scoring system for a clean label score. Sarah is going to now step us through some results.
Great, thanks so much. Let me make sure that this is going to click right. So let's see, here we go. So now I get the opportunity to kind of talk about this research and kind of how we're utilizing it and the great ways that you can kind of look at it in so many different ways. For those of you who love to play with data, this is an awesome source because what we're really looking at is a lot of different ingredients in different moments. So we can look at specific trade-offs, we can look at the ways consumers are responding on a macro level, on a very small level, you know, really going in and out of data and looking at it that way. It's something that I love to do, so I get great honor to share it with you. And so what we've done to make it easy, though, is because sometimes it's hard to play with data, is to make an online dashboard, a way or a database that you can access, that you can get to lots of different reports and graphs very quickly and very easily. And the way we've set this up is to get to this type of information, we can look at it from food categories we talked about, and we'll go through an example of some different food categories or specific moments. You know, I think that we underestimate the value of the different types of moments that are going on. Some of the, you know, what are the trade-offs between a convenience moment versus a routine moment? I think that those types of things are underestimated a little bit. They're smaller differences, but they're meaningful when you're really putting together ingredients to make and engage with consumers and delight consumers. One of the other things that Dave talked about originally was about segmentation. We know that segments and using your custom segmentation models is critically important. And so when we can overlay that onto the specific information, it really gives a perspective that's really relevant to you. And then you can continue to cut the data with males and females, or, you know, with millennials or different types of demographic groups and standard demographics that we've captured to look at these specific clean label scores. We've done this transformation of the data so it's pretty clear. It's almost intuitive. It's really interesting, and hopefully you'll see that in the next couple of slides. And then we're also going to look with ingredient comparisons within specific categories. So lots of different ways that we can look at this. So let me click to the next slide. So I'm going to start and show you 4 or 5 slides of different examples of the ways of which we're looking at these scores. So as Dave said, that's about a range of 0 to 100. And we have lots of different categories of ingredients. So just along the bottom of this graph, we're showing flavorings and colorants and texturants. You know, these are typical FDA categories of different types of ingredients. And this is just an average across all the ones that we've tested. Some of these categories have a few, some of these categories have lots of different ingredients that we've tested. And some of them are blacklisted. You know, some of them are the ones that, you know, Panera is telling us to avoid, but some of them aren't. You know, some of them are some pantry ingredients that you know, we really need to think about when we're labeling, and how might consumers respond to that. And so here we can see some differences, and flavoring is pretty high, and we'll go through a couple examples of flavorings, and also colorants, texturants, fat and fat replacers. Now sweeteners are pretty low here, but I want to point out that this is for lunch and dinner foods. So we just took this snapshot looking at lunch and dinner foods, savory foods. So we kind of expect that there's a bit of a halo that sweeteners, you know, all they might be clean overall, but still acesulfame potassium is still scored pretty low from a clean label status, whether it's in a lunch or dinner food or other types of things. And I'll show you a couple examples of sweeteners as we go forward as well. So now that we kind of get our grounding in clean label scores, and they range from the lows, 20s, some of them are up to upwards, you know, on an average, even, you know, much higher than 65. So we'll see that going forward. So if we look at this next slide, what we're going to stay in the lunch and dinner occasion, stay in savory, and think about, okay, some specific ingredients that might be going into this flavoring category that we have, and what are some of the things that we're seeing. So we just pulled a list, and the great thing about the work that we've done, and kudos to Dave and our team and Insights Now, we've developed a statistical analysis for this too. So you can really understand if you're comparing different different ingredients. The report will run straight away in the within the online system, so you can get those statistics. Like, you just have to pause just a second and then it runs it. So it's really interesting to be able to compare a lot of different ways. So here we're looking at statistics, and this is where the title of our talk comes from, looking at sea salt versus sodium chloride. It's a huge difference, okay? So if we use a typical cutoff, as Dave talked about 50 of being more clean than less clean, kind of thinking about those quadrants in 25% increments. Sodium chloride is something that you really have to think about and you avoid quite a bit at 26.07%. So that is a pretty low clean label score, whereas sea salt gets one of the highest clean label scores that we've seen. Very interesting to compare the two. Now, sodium chloride is salt, but consumers, when they just look at it quickly, and go through this implicit response, we really want to measure, what they're feeling without, thinking about it so much or investigating it, going to Google and doing any types of searches, because that's what they're experiencing when they're picking up and reading a label in a grocery store. And so you really get an interesting comparison. I can say that we've been doing work with some flavors, and natural continues to be very high. Organic is close there behind, but natural continues to edge out in most of the categories that we're seeing. So if you compare the two. And then you also have some of this kind of, there's adjectives that can go on to different things. So like smoked sea salt, I was very interested to kind of see where that fell out. Whereas for potassium salt, just really understanding that there's almost a bipolar distribution of the ingredients on this slide. Because you get to the bottom, okay, 11.5 is a really low score. Everybody's going to say they're going to avoid disodium guanylate and disodium inosinate in their lunch and dinner foods. So really, something that consumers just don't know what that is, and they don't know what it is, and they're going to avoid it. So I just highlight here the blacklisted one. So we talked about blacklisted ingredients. So as typical, we're seeing them, a lot of them coming low, but there's a couple of them that have been blacklisted that come up a little bit higher. So I'm going to turn now, and I'm staying one more slide in the savory realm, because what we want to do is look at those moments. And here's an example of 5 moments, kind of scan, across the gamut of a lot of different things, whether it's a comforting moment, something more for convenience or health. And the interesting thing is you can look at this data a couple different ways. There's not a lot of statistical differences on this slide. You're looking up and down in columns, comparing those different ingredients, from chicken stock to natural chicken flavor, organic chicken flavor, chicken bouillon, etc. And really what we're looking at here is when we're teasing this apart, what are the trade-offs for convenience versus health moments? That's the biggest thing that we're seeing the difference of. Okay, so it's almost as if in a health moment, you expect these things to be there. Okay, chicken stock, you're almost more critical of things because that's a health moment, and those things should be clean, and those things should be healthy, and it should be in there. Whereas convenience, I'm a little bit more forgiving. It's the same ingredient, just in a different moment, but I might be more accepting of that. It delivers a higher perception of clean label in a convenience moment than in a health moment. So interesting how you can kind of just tease that out. We can go in, okay, so chicken fat's a little bit higher in health. Well, you know what? I'm trying to get better. I know that not too much fat is too bad, but maybe that's something that I should have as I'm trying to get better to help my body. Not huge differences, but just understanding that there's some differences, some trade-offs, and then we're looking at all of these together. And then you can triangulate. You can say, well, I'm seeing it with this, I'm seeing it with this type of demographic, and that can really help to create a story of the different ingredients as you put together your products. I'm going to switch now out of the savory space, and I'm going to go into sweet. And so one of the things that we've been testing, gaining a lot of really interesting insight, is about sweeteners. And so when we look across sweeteners, there's a whole host of different sweeteners, a lot of natural sweeteners, more artificial sweeteners, the blacklisted ones, and I'll show that in here in just a second. And honey continues to have just this really high health halo on it. So these are the average clean label scores across all the foods that we've tested these in. So even in those lunch dinner moments, versus some of a more sweet type of moments, whether it's a bakery item or something else like that, because we've tested a lot of different ingredients across a lot of different categories. And again, you're almost having this like really high, honey is really high. You have this group of ingredients kind of in the middle with agave and monk fruit, cane sugar, juice concentrate. We're just wondering if there's an effect of processing or something that's going on there, that you have if you have an indication of processing, it decreases the clean label score. Just something to think about. We don't know for sure, but we're continuing to try to learn there. And then stevia, I'm going to talk more about stevia because it's really interesting. You know, this is a really important natural sweetener at this point, really, you know, getting used quite a bit together with monk fruit, together with other types of sweeteners, and really helping to reduce some of the caloric content, but still has some of those off tastes. But, you know, it's interesting. It's the first mover. It was the first one out there, really to be a natural sweetener, and, you know, how it continues to grow and evolve. And then you have the bottom part, but wait, sucrose is in that bottom group. You know, you look at that and you're like, oh, they all sound chemical. Well, yeah, that's your first indication, and that's what consumers see. But sucrose is sugar. So it's interesting. I'm never going to say, you know, consumers always give us interesting responses, and, you know, they might not even know that sucrose is sugar when you really just get a quick implicit response. So I click again. Hopefully this comes up. And you know, I just highlight the acesulfame potassium, erythritol, and sucralose as blacklisted ingredients. All right, as I go to the next slide, I just wanted to highlight honey, which was the top ingredient that we're seeing some differences based upon the region. So specifically out west, and, you know, for those of you out on the West Coast, there's actually a little bit more criticism, or they're a little more critical of clean label ingredients overall. So we're not surprised we see a slight decrease. And a little bit higher in the Midwest. It's always, I'm Midwest, and people call me Midwest optimistic. So, you know, those types of things we're seeing, but we're seeing that play out even in the way that they score. So interesting how we can really parse that out as well. And then what we're going to do is we're going to see stevia. The charts here are, it's pretty light, but that's not the point of really what we're looking at. What we're really looking at for stevia is we wanted to show across a lot of different ingredient types that we've been testing, really what's happening with stevia. And there's differences. There's a big range with the low, you know, from something in a regular cup yogurt to some high scores of stevia for clean label score in those protein enhanced foods, for protein bars, protein powders, ready to drink protein shakes. Just really interesting that there's a greater acceptance or a greater perception of clean label of stevia in these types of products than in some other types of products. So really trying to understand that there's a trade-off between the two, and you can't just assume that the ingredient is okay in every single product category that we really engage with. And finally, I want to just talk about, you know, thinking about clean label, not only for food ingredients, but also for non-food ingredients. You know, we've extended our thinking to not just include these specific categories, but to go into hair care and home care, body care, oral care. It's so interesting that, you know, there's a lot of categories. I was surprised, if I just look overall at this chart, how much importance it is that this free from movement is not just in food, it's going into a lot of different other types of products as well. And, you know, personally, I had to go look at the back of my toothpaste tube to see what was in it. It's not something that I look at every day. But I would personally say that it was important to me as well. So, you know, just something really that this movement is not just in food, we're seeing it also in non-food. And then if we take this data and look at just of those people who think it's important, we have huge, high numbers of people who are engaged in the category that think clean label is important. So our clean label enthusiasts really represent both food and non-food categories, and we had the opportunity to really delve deep into research, you know, really across different types of ingredients and categories to really learn a lot of different things. And I'll be so interested to see how some food ingredients might test a little bit more deeply into some of these non-food ingredients and compare that more as we go forward, because this is a growing, ever-changing, and really strengthening program that we have.
Okay, well, you know, thanks, Sarah. Kind of in summary, there's a few things I think we'd like to point out. And first of all is that the process that we have developed to create this clean label score you know, is proving to be really valuable for those that are currently using it. as a new way to bring in the voice of the consumer into the clean label decision process. And you can now access these various reports that you see here on the right, as Sarah was just showing, so that you can filter and extract and compare different ingredients in the context of their food applications or non-food applications, as we'll soon have, uh, for the context of various use moments. So you can actually understand trade-offs and things like that by comparing clean label scores. I mean, that is how much a specific ingredient contributes to the perception of a clean label. And we're finding that if you're a manufacturer, we're finding companies using this upfront in the design of their research or design of products. And so that, or we're finding it sometimes in the back end where you're trying to evolve a product or a product line or a brand to be perceived as much more clean in accordance with whatever your brand strategy is. We're also seeing ingredient companies utilizing this in their day-to-day operations, providing faster information as they're seeking to, provide insights and provide information and ingredients to their clients. In addition, the clean label community is being used as a key voice for agile innovation when we're able to pre-type the community, as Sarah was talking about, so you can target specific segments that are important to whatever initiatives are being taken to quickly and cost effectively access, these consumers for custom research. So you can do very quick research into these various different segments, either quantitatively or qualitatively, because these people want to give their opinion, and they're readily available because they're very much engaged in what we're doing. So it's a great approach to agile, a great tool for those companies that are trying to be more agile. And finally, we like to add the point that we're finding clean label to be important in non-food products as well, especially, let's say, for oral care products where ingredients are going into the mouth, and people have concerns how that is, gets into their systems, or hair care and body care products, where ingredients are coming in contact with the skin, and consumers are concerned about, various different quote unquote chemicals getting absorbed into their bodies, or in the home care or fabric care products where ingredients are sprayed or somehow get into the environment that people breathe in, in their home environment. So these are all the concerns that this community has, and we're finding these access points really are important. So if you wish to get these to access, this community, to type them or to look at, get quarterly reports or access to this app and workspace, or access to the people directly, these are different ways to really learn, to gain insights, whether it's fitting into your agile process or whether it's just something that's really important to you in a company and in terms of whatever your initiatives are, or how you're trying to support your clients or internal clients or external clients. So if you're interested in these access, give Sarah or I a call, or contact us. Access is very quick. It only takes about a day or so to, sometimes a couple weeks to type people, if that's what you want to do. But we're finding this is something that's pretty easy to do. So with that said, we're really open to any sort of questions that any of you may have. And you can send it to us either privately or ideally at this point, something that we can talk about. So there's one question that has come in already that I see, and I would like to mention is, and is how do consumers know what are blacklisted ingredients and in the store that they shop. Um, Sarah, do you
Oh,
want to
Dave,
take this?
let me take that one. Yeah, because it's really interesting because coming from the ingredient side and really thinking about, okay, if we're developing specific um, uh, solutions for our customers, we really have to think about, okay, there's lists of things that you can and can't do, but consumers have those lists as well. If you go to the Panera website and go to their philosophy, they have the no-no list right there. It's listed right there, and then all of those specific ingredients can't be used in the products, and they trust that they're not used. I was in Panera actually last night for dinner, and I thought it was really interesting that the ketchup was from Heinz, but it was the simply or the organic kind that in the little packets, and I don't think I've ever seen that before. So it's just really interesting to see that what the effect of this has on really a whole movement that's going forward. And consumers, it might not be right there in the store, but everyone is online and looking at foods and looking at the what they're doing and being much more engaged. And I just think it's amazing. You talk to people and the first thing they do is do a Google search. So they're going to find this information straight away because it's out there, and the retailers want to talk to them about this, to say that we're looking after your best interest. And so really, balance the two about delivering a great tasting product together with, managing consumer expectations.
Super. So another question is, do you have an example of an agile research project in the community, or from the community, or using the community? You want to address
Yeah, I
that?
can talk about that. I have so many different examples, so I'm pausing to say which one's the right one. Because, I think that there's, we do the ingredient testing, but oftentimes what we're doing is, from an agile perspective, thinking about it up front, doing a qualitative deep dive. The and I think it's interesting to go back and forth between qual and quant. So I'll use an example when we were really trying to understand some questions around, it wasn't necessarily the concept development. So the concept had been developed, but we wanted to understand some of the pieces that were surrounding it. There was a great utilization of the community because the community is a very forward-thinking community. The community was really well aligned with our clients' segments that they were looking for, and then we were able really to go deep into that type of understanding to get some qualitative insights. And then, you can always follow it up with a quantitative survey using the community, or even go out more nationally. So it's interesting the way that we work at Insights Now, and the way that I think about projects is, how can I leverage the community in maybe an upfront or going in and out of different types of projects, because it's not always perfect for every question, but it is perfect for really getting some quick responses. And I'll give one more example. I don't want to take up too much time. Is a quick question of the day. So, oftentimes you have a question that you just really need a burning answer to, and you need some consumer responses fairly quickly. And this community really provides us the opportunity to do that. So, just some quick questions of the day we've put out there, and have gotten some really great responses that have really helped to provide our clients the information that they needed to support their projects.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think I have anything much to add to that, because it's the qualitative. Online qual is, we've sent people out in missions to do things. Questions a day have been, it's very fast turnaround, and it can be sent out to the whole community, or which, with the size of a community like this, you get pretty fast results, and then you get a big enough response, you can even, segment it, and bucket it, or you can send it out to a smaller part of the community based on, whether it's, look, send it out to millennials, or we've got one segment for one company. It's people that are, I forget what the low end, but it's younger people, up to about, I think, age 30 or so. So it's a great way to fit with this sort of agile process.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that because it affords you the opportunity to kind of get your segmentation done and then go back to these people quickly. And sometimes that's a hard thing. So if you're just going online and doing just a random quick study, sometimes you don't get the segmentation model that is really appropriate for you and your brand. And so, the community affords us the opportunity to do that, to segment the consumers, and it's a community, so it's large enough but small enough. So to me, it's kind of that nice balance in between.
Yeah, I mean, another thing we can do, since we know all these people and we know a lot of information about them, we don't have to ask that much information about we ask, very specific questions, and then we have already this wealth of information about them that we can use. And then we can also, since we can do some get quantitative information, and then we can, based on whatever the comments are, we can go right back to a qual and deep dive specifically to individuals that are providing maybe very unique or maybe surprising results. So it affords this more of a hybrid, qual, quant, or we can go qual first and follow up with quant. Even is it just affords a lot of flexibility, again, which fits more of an agile process for doing research. All right. So that seems to be it today for questions. I say, so next month, July the 12th, we're stay away from the 4th of July week. We're going to be really delving into non-food, and we're finding some really interesting things. It's salt, in non-food. I mean, which surprising to me. I never thought about it, but the more I think about it, I think of brands of more natural types of toothpaste that I've been exposed to, and for me, they taste really salty. And I never thought about what's the salt content. But in hair care, there's appears to be some really interesting perceptions about salt and hair care, or sodium chloride. If it's a more chemical sounding thing. So, anyways, we're going to delve into that. We're not going to be just focusing on just hair. We'll be looking on a broad stroke of some of the deep dives qualitatively that we've done. And Karen Lynch, who's our Senior Director of Qual, will be leading that presentation next month. So last but not least, again, if you want to reach out to either Sarah or I, if you're interested in this community, if you're not currently have any access to it, give it a try. We have a trial sort of program that's pretty low cost to get you to try it out, and then if it fits your broader, proves to be something of interest or value to you, you can then sign up on get access for like an annual sort of access to. So that said, thank you. Appreciate everybody being a member or joining in today. And Sarah, anything you want to conclude with?
Nope, just thanks a lot. I hope you, gained a slightly different perspective on how you could think about ingredients and really the impact of the free from food movement. We've got a lot of influences as we try to tease out and understand the voice of the consumer. This is one great way to think about it, and hopefully our behavioral research aspects can really lend itself to align with the way that you're thinking about innovation at your companies. So right. Thanks for participating.
And if any coworkers, colleagues, whatever, did not have an opportunity to see this live as you are, this is something that you can actually get access through the recording should be available sometime today. And anyways, for that, we'll say thank you again, and we'll be talking to you sometime in the near future.